Well, welcome to Mazévo Connect. My name is Brian Peck. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing here for Mazévo, and I am joined today by a couple of my Mazévo colleagues. We're going to be going through the Mazévo event editor with everybody. But before we do that, just a few announcements for folks. I think most of you on this call may have received an email earlier this week announcing our uh, Mazévo Global Administrator training that is coming up next Tuesday. So it's next Tuesday. I believe that's at 11 o'clock Mountain Time. Don't quote me on that time. I'll double check it for you here in just a moment. But anyways, we are offering a Mazévo Global Admin training class. This is the first time we've done it. It's going to be a group training. So all of you are going to be together in one training class over Zoom, and we're going to go through the basics of being a Mazévo Global Admin. So this is great for folks that are maybe new in the role of a Mazévo Global Administrator, but also for folks that maybe have been a Mazévo Global Administrator for quite some time and you're like, I just need to brush up on a few things. So it's going to be great. Wendy's going to be leading that for us. And I will put a link to details about this in the chat here in a few moments. So you can look for that. And if you're interested, feel free to sign up. But I think it's going to be really good. I also want to welcome a few folks to the Mazévo community. We just signed up recently, a few new customers. First was St. Joseph's Church in the LA area out in California, brand new customer. And then also just yesterday, we signed up James Madison University Libraries is also moving over to Mazévo. So welcome if anybody from those institutions is on the call today. Welcome to Mazévo. And yeah, so our topic today is going to be on the Mazévo event editor, and it'll be, like I mentioned earlier, us on the Mazévo side going through some tips and tricks how to use the Mazévo event editor. Before we jump into that, I will introduce my colleagues here, just so if this is your first time on Mazévo Connect, you know who we are. So we've got here presenting today, I've got Joe Finley, who's one of our software trainers, and then Wendy Newland, who's also one of our software trainers. I've got Claire DeGroat, who's one of our account executives, and then Dean Evans, who's our CEO. So they will all be taking a turn presenting. I'll mention a few things as well to get started. And if this is your first Mazévo Connect, we do these every month. It's always on a different topic, and we just pick things that folks, are probably going to be interested in. And we've been doing this now for years, and we still get a great turnout for these. It's great to hear that folks are getting a lot of good value out of these webinars. We do record all of them and put them up on our YouTube channel afterwards. So if you miss anything today and you want to go back and watch some of it again or whatever, it will be up on the YouTube channel. I'll send you an email in a few days, early next week, that'll have the link to that and everything. The way that we do these as well is we do like it to be interactive, and it is a webinar format. So the way that it's mainly interactive for folks is that you can put any questions that you have as we're going through this in the chat in Zoom, and we will keep an eye on those and try our best to respond to those there. Also, there's typically time at the end where we'll open it up for questions. So if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question that way, you can. Today's topic is chock full of knowledge. So we're going to be throwing a lot at you today. So I don't know how much time we're going to have for Q&A. We'll just kind of play that one by ear, but feel free as questions come up, put them in the chat. You can also always email us afterwards and we'll help you out that way if your question's like really specific or something like that. So anyways, that's how we conduct these. So with that said, we'll just kind of roll into today's topic, which is the Mazévo event editor. And so to do that, I'm going to go ahead and I will just share my screen briefly with everybody because I've got Mazévo up here, and I think pretty much everybody on the call is going to be already familiar with Mazévo. You probably work in it every day, although we may have some folks on here that haven't used Mazévo before. So I'm logged in here currently as a Mazévo administrator, which means you're seeing all of the tools up here and things like that. And the tool we're going to be focusing on today is the event editor, and you get to that by opening an event in Mazévo, and however you're going to do that. So if you're, I'm going to go into my event book here where I've got some events scheduled for today. You can see here I've got kind of a busy day going on. And if I want to open the event editor, I just double click on an event and you'll notice it always opens it in a new tab in my browser. So this here is what we refer to as the event editor. You can kind of think of it as the main command center for all of your event management tools here. So this is where you're going to see all the details about a particular event. So in this case, I've got a chess club meeting that's going on and I can see its bookings right here. So all the details are right here. My colleagues will be going through some of these details with you and some ways to kind of navigate around in here and things like that. But I just wanted to kind of orient everybody that this is the event editor tool, and it basically all roads lead to this. So if you're ever in Mazévo and you're trying to get more details on an event, you're eventually going to always end up here. You're going to drill into it. So this is the event book. The other popular way to get to it is through Find Events, where you just pull up the list of events and you click on, one of these. Here, boy, we've got a lot of chess and debate club going on. Here's baseball practice. I'll click on that. I can get to it that way. The other little hint, though, I will give you is that this event number field up here, this is another popular way to open the event editor is if you know the event number, which is just this little number hanging off the end of all of these events right here. You can type it in, open up the event editor this way, or you can navigate to it if you've recently had it open and you can just click on it that way. So easy way to get to this here. Last thing I'm going to mention before I turn this over and we'll kind of get into the main discussion here is there is security around the event editor and who can access this screen. A way to think about this is if you can access this screen, essentially you can edit things about the event. I can change the room, I can change the time, stuff like that. So if you have folks on staff that maybe you want to give them access to some of this information, but you don't want them changing anything, you're probably not going to want them to be able to get to this screen because once they're here, they can change stuff. So the way that we handle that, I just want to show you, I'm going to go back into my Find Events right here. So here's my list of events for today. You can make folks what we call a view-only event planner. That means that they have access to the tools in Mazévo to see what's going on, but they can't make changes to anything. And if they're a view-only event planner, when they click on one of these events, rather than opening up the event editor where they can make all those changes, they can just click on this little information icon, or it'll do the same thing. That's what I meant to say. So when they click this link, it's going to do the same thing as clicking on this little information icon, which means they will see the details of the event and its resources, basically everything about this particular booking. They can see all the information, you just can't change any of it. So I just wanted to mention that. That's how you can kind of control who has access that way. So with that said, I've kind of set the stage here for everybody with that. Dean is going to go first, and he's going to start by showing you some information on how you can make edits in the event editor and hopefully save yourself some time. So I will turn it over to Dean.
Okay, everybody, I've shared my screen and we're going to open up an event here. I've got this sample event that I created, and my goal today is to show you, with all of us today, is to show you pretty much all of the different buttons and what they do in here. So I'm going to start at the top of the screen and talk about the very first button here is this tips. This is relatively new. If you click on that, you've noticed these tips pop up every once in a while. But if you see this little light bulb over here and you click on it, you can get back to those tips because, we're always in a hurry and we just ignore them, but they're all right here. So if you click on one, you'll be able to see what the tip is. So that's there. The next couple of buttons that I want to talk about, the approve and deny buttons. If you take requests and an event has one or more bookings in a request status, so that's a pending behavior, you'll get these buttons. All they do is change the status of the requests to say confirmed. So when I click this button, it's going to say what status do you want to change it to? And then you pick confirmed or tentative in my case. The deny button cancels it. Um, these two buttons also send out emails. They're optional emails, and they would notify the primary contact here, the requester, that it was approved or denied. So just kind of keep that in mind. As we go down the screen here, we've got these expansion panels. I don't know whether anybody's ever clicked on these. Hopefully you have, but you can click on these and open up. We try to make it to where we're not burning up a lot of real estate on your screen. But when you click on these, the event one is going to show you some details. It's going to show you your event coordinator. Is it VIP? If the whole event's marked as private, it would say private. Your attendance. There's an inbound email. What this does is if I click on that, it copies that email address to the clipboard so I could flip over to my Outlook and send a message to this email address, and it gets recorded here under email history. There's a change button. This change link and this change link we're going to go into in a minute. They do the same thing. Lock event. If you want to prevent the requester, in this case Alice, from making any changes to this event, you can hit this lock and it's going to put a big lock symbol. So if you ever open an event and you see the lock symbol, that basically says the requester can no longer make changes to it. Okay, so and you can unlock it so you can flip it back and forth. Under the organization, this is your organization and your contacts. If you have multiple, you have primary, secondary, and billing contacts, they'd all be listed here. Couple of things here. If you click on the organization name, it's going to open up that organization in a different tab so that you can get in and see the details of that organization. You can do the same thing for the contact by clicking on their name. It opens up the contact in another window. You can actually send an email here. Wendy's going to show you some of that. And another little button here, the alert. You can put alerts on your organization. And to see them, you can click on that. And here are my basket weavers. I've got a note in there. They're messy. They leave yarn everywhere. So that's how you would get to that alert. The next tab here, this panel, the charges. This is showing you billing code. Are they taxable? Are there service charges? And what's the total charge for the event? If you hover over that, it's also going to break down the taxes and service charges. So with that, we're going to go in and we're going to show you how you would change things at this event level up here. So I'll just hit the change link here. You can change all of this information. Just note that you can have more than one event coordinator. This is where you could actually change the organization. If you really wanted this to be the debate club, you could change it right here. Your contact here, if you need to change the primary, you could change it. Why are these things in orange? Well, these are contacts that are tied to the basket weaving club. But if I scroll down far enough, Angie here is not tied, but I could actually make Angie the primary contact for this event if I wanted to. If I want to add a secondary or billing contacts, I simply click add and it defaults to secondary, and I could just come in here. And again, maybe I want to make Ron Bradley a secondary contact, and you would go through that process. If you want to add another contact, let's say you want a billing contact, and you could come in here and say, well, Charlotte's going to be the billing contact. So as you add them here, don't forget to hit the save button. If you hit cancel, they're not going to be added to the event. A couple flags here, the private event, VIP. Under the billing tab, this is how you set the pricing plan for the entire event. Now, everything on this panel here came from the organization. So the basket weavers are set for external pricing, their billing code, and the taxes and service charges are all set from the basket weavers, and you can override it right here. And I'll just touch on history right here. This is all of the history of the changes at the event level. And you can see I've been kind of busy setting this up for today. So at this point, I just want to add those two contacts. Now, if I come back up here, you'll now see the secondary and billing contacts associated right there. A couple of other buttons up here. I think everybody knows that this is going to send a confirmation. Joe's going to talk a little bit more about that. This link shows up if you have any inventoriable resources on your event. You can click this button and it'll check to see if anything's overbooked. Copy. This will copy the entire event except canceled bookings. So it copies all bookings that are non-canceled and their resources to a new date. So you just simply say, well, what's the date? What's the new status? And off you go. You've got a couple options here to reset pricing is kind of important. If you're taking an old event from last year, copying it forward, you probably want to reset the price, and that's the way it defaults, and it'll reprice it with today's pricing. So that's what that does. If the room's not available, it would go into a canceled status. If you leave it like this, it'll go into conflict status if you have one defined, if you check that box. Calendar details, that's for the public calendar. I'll kind of leave that alone. Alerts, you can set an alert on this event that every time you open the event, the big alert bar in orange would appear at the top. And then you've got the refresh if you're making a lot of changes or somebody else is in the same event. Refresh is just reloads the whole event. And then your history button here, Claire's going to talk about that. So that's pretty much everything at the event level that I wanted to talk about. Let's jump down to bookings. So a couple of things here. The two I want to start with right here, show old and show canceled. These are off by default. So if I check those, it shows all of my old bookings and all of my canceled bookings. So I can click those and just toggle on and toggle off like that. Couple of other things I want to show here. Let me go to my notes. Um, Filtering is huge on these in the event editor. So if I wanted to filter and I wanted to find every event on Monday, I can just start typing Monday and it'll filter my list of bookings to Monday. If I want to find tentative events, I can start typing tentative and find those as well. So you can search by any field in this grid down here and limit the list. Now, why would you do that? Well, if I needed to change all of the events on Monday, I can now just check this box here and it's going to automatically limit my selections to Monday. So keep that in mind that this filtering is on bookings and resources, very, very powerful on what you can do there. The add bookings button, kind of self-explanatory. If you needed to add additional dates to this event, that's going to start the add new event process and add those bookings to this event right here. I want to go through, there's one other thing I want to show you on here. And I don't know that anybody, I'm hoping this is a tip and trick nobody's seen, but if you drag a column up here, it actually groups all of your bookings by that column. So you can see here's your meetings and here's your special events. You could have also filtered for that, but you could do that with anything. If you've got a lot of bookings and you need to break it out by room, you could drag room up there. So just remember that sometimes that's pretty handy to be able to group things that way. So it could be status, things like that. So let's go through and explain some of the different icons on this screen here for these bookings. Why is there no checkbox here? Well, this booking is considered old, and we don't let you change old bookings. For most systems, that's 1 year old. If the booking's over a year old, we don't want you to change it for history purposes. I've set Brian's demonstration up here to be 30 days, so it thinks that April 1st is old and won't let me change it. Just be aware if you need to make adjustments to that, we can do that as Mazévo support. The next one down here, this is the event book. Wendy's going to show you what that does. This is a private booking. I've marked this one as private, so it won't show on the public calendars. You've got your setup and tear down time, and it's like, well, what's this little orange arrow right here? That's showing you that your alert that that's gone past midnight, so that goes into the next day. As we come across here, we're seeing some other icons. This is a room diagram icon. If I click that, Wendy's going to show you what that does. Your room setup icons are here, what the style is. So at a glance, you can see that. The next icon over here is it's been invoiced. If you see the green dollar sign, that particular room charge has been included on an invoice. And if you hover over it, you can actually see the invoice there. So that's a whirlwind tour. Oh, there's one more down here at the bottom, shared room. Don't know whether very many people have this configured, but my south lawn is a room that's defined as always available. It would let me put two bookings at the same time, same date in there, and it would indicate, because again, it's always available and it's essentially shared space. It's going to indicate that there's another booking in that room on that day by that symbol right there. So it's another icon. Okay, the next thing I want to do is show you how you start making changes to this. The one thing that most of you probably don't know is I'm starting to select these and I go check, check, check. And this is the thing you hate. You're like, why can't you guys fix this? Because I check here and my first two become unchecked. Here is the tip and trick of the year for you. Hold on Windows, hold your control key down. If you're on a Mac, hold your command key down. And it doesn't really matter where you click, and it will change those for you. The other thing, in all of these list boxes or these check boxes, if I check that one, now I'm going to I'm on a Mac, so I'm going to hold the command key down and my shift key, and it's going to select everything between my first and my last one that I just clicked on. But I could still continue and hold the command key down and continue to check. So keep that in mind. Now that you have some of these selected, you have this menu that comes up here. Let's just talk about this. This is how you're going to change the status of the ones you've just checked, the rooms, the times, the dates. Times is a little important. I want to point out this is how you add customer access time to your bookings. The other one I want to kind of point out, room setup. This is how you would change the setup and setup diagram. This is how you would add a diagram to these bookings. You don't want to put it under documents, and Wendy will talk a little bit more about that in a moment. You can change the privacy flag here. The one thing I did want to point out, deep down in here under dates, you can actually move forward and backward. So if I have multiple bookings selected, it's going to ask me, well, I want to move them forward by a day, week, month, or year, or I can move them backwards. Okay. If I only had one booking selected, let me unselect all of these and I pick this one and say change date. It's going to ask me, well, do you want to move it to a specific date or forward or backward? So just keep that in mind when you're working with dates that you have some options there. Um, there's several ways to add resources. One of them is if you check this box here, you'll get this add resources, and I'll kind of talk more about that in a little bit. You can add a task to these bookings. This is the only way you can add a task to an individual booking if you have them defined that way. And now if you change the pricing plan up here, you could change it up here. If you change it, it doesn't change the prices on anything on your event. However, if you need to, you could select your bookings, hit reset pricing, and it's going to take this booking that I've selected and reset it to the most current value of the external pricing plan. So if I picked the wrong plan originally and I had to change it, what you would normally do is just come in here and select all of your bookings and reset the price to get a new pricing plan across all of your bookings. So let's go back and see here. We can email this. Joe's going to talk about that. That's how you can get a confirmation out. And you can copy this booking to a new date if you wanted to. You can also come down here. Let's see, where's my move? Why is my move not there? Of course, in a demo, something's always going to go wrong. So I'm going to select a couple of bookings here. Copy lets you move these two or copy these two bookings to this event, to a different event, or to a new event, and you basically give it a start date and a status. Move is pick these two bookings up and move them to another event, or create a new event with just those two bookings on it. For those of you that create these events with thousands of bookings on them and you find that it's too slow, technique would be come in here, select some of your bookings and move them to a new event to help break apart those really, really big events with lots of bookings. So anyway, and then Joe's going to talk a little bit more about those reports. One other thing I want to show you here, sometimes you'll see this. There's a delete button here. Now, why does it come up there on that booking and not on this one? It's because this one is canceled. By default, we don't want you deleting bookings. We want you to cancel them so that they're there for reporting. So if it's canceled, we do let you delete it, but we actually have a system parameter that we set, and we're not going to let you delete bookings that were canceled after 10 days from now. That's the system default. If you ever want us to change that, we can. Some people have opened it wide open. The idea behind that is if I've made an event in error and I've completely messed it up, I just want to delete it and get rid of it and start over. And that's why we have this 10-day window. But again, we can change that window for you on that. So the other thing you can do here, this is how you edit more than one booking at a time. If I come into this booking right here, I can click on that date and I'm going to see this individual booking, and I can also add resources directly right here. And this sort order, a lot of people if you're doing catering and you care about the order, I'll just go ahead and pick some catering here. I'm just going to randomly pick a few things. Well, first of all, you can actually change the order as you're going here. Let's put a reception in there and add those. Um, and so there's my catering. But if I come into a booking and I need to change the order, I can say set the sort order and I can drag them around right here and change those. And it'll show up on reports in this particular order. So just so you know, you have the ability to kind of control that. So that's a booking level. You can copy a booking here. You can see the room diagram. You can go in and edit the booking. Now, if you need to make a lot of changes, date, time, and room, you might want to go in here and change all of those at one time. You can get to your room setup diagram. And then over here, you can actually change the name of the event for this one booking. So, if you had a big conference, this may be a breakout. So you could label this breakout like that and change its event type right there. So I'll go ahead and do that just so you can see what that looks like. So on this one booking, the event name's different. And as I go back up, it's going to show right here as breakout. So that's the event name that'll show on all of the reports from here forward. So let's see here. I think I've got everything. I kind of want to go to resources now. And show you what's under this tab right here. So again, there was a couple different ways to add resources. Check this box, add resources. I could drill into a booking and add resources, or go to the resource tab and click the add button here. Again, the grid here is sortable and searchable. So if I'm looking for blue chairs, I can type in blue chairs and it filters the list to just those blue chairs across all of the different dates. I could check that, and now I can start changing things. I can change my quantity, my price, my notes across all of those different dates there. So if I want to change the quantity, again, I think most everybody knows that you can do that, but I'll just throw that in there again. So filtering, don't forget about filtering there. That's huge. And then each one of these is grouped by bookings here. So you're looking at this right here. I've got a lunch, and when I added these, I actually set a service time of 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And the way you would do that, let's go to um, another one. Let's add some here for this June 3rd. Well, no, I've already got catering there. Let's add it for the June 9th. So I'm going to add it to a specific date here, June 9th. Let me scroll down, grab that uh, student center, and then next, and I'm going to say I want catering. And right here, we see this a lot in catering. So if you had breakfast and lunch in the same booking, you'd want to go through this process. These services are defined as special resources. So let's say I want lunch for 12 people, and I want to add some service times. It's going to pop up and show you service times you already have on this event, or you could just add a new one. I'll just cheat, grab that again, and then you pick your items here. Your morning breakfast service. I'm just making up stuff here. And I want to show you what a catering note looks like. And again, I can flip those around and I can add that. And it's basically saying, do you want to add more resources to those bookings you just did? No, not, I'm good right there. So here's this last one on June 9th, and here's all of that. So that kind of segues into my next thing. You can actually click on one of these resources and you can change anything on the resource, much like when I drilled all the way into a booking, I could change anything. And this is how you do it for an individual resource. And if we look up here, there's two note fields. This is the flowery, salesy description that's on the resource, and then any special instructions that typically used by requesters that separate that. But you could actually change the note field here. Requesters cannot change this, only event planners. There's a special type of resource that's considered to be just a note. Cleverly, I've named my resource Catering Notes, and it just has the one box, and there's no quantity and there's no price. So that's the difference between a note. So I think that's all I wanted to show you, and I'm going to turn it over to Wendy. But there's a lot right there, and I went really fast. I apologize. I'm trying to squeeze as much as I can in here. So Wendy, here you go.
Right. Believe it or not, there's more cool stuff. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So the first cool tip I want to show you is, and Dean had alluded to this, on my event viewer, I see this little blue icon, the event book. When I click on that, it takes me directly to the event book with the building, and it's on that date. So basically you can see, well, what else is going on around my event? Okay. I'm going to go back to my event viewer. I'm going to show you my next cool tip. Right over here, Dean had kind of mentioned this too. If I hover over this little orange icon, and by the way, this is the room set up that either the requester has selected when they requested this space or the event planner put it in. But not only can I see rounds for 8 for 56, but I also see the notes. So back in the EMS world, those are the setup notes. You can view them. You can also view them by hovering over the word rounds for 8. Now, that brings me to my next tip. What is this little blue icon? Well, that is a room diagram. And when I click on the room diagram, I actually see a diagram of how the customer wants this room set up. How did that get there? Well, we click on just to the left of the booking or bookings, and we go to change bookings, change setup diagram. This is where you can either upload an attachment or put a link to a diagram. Okay. Now, by so doing, you will be able to see this diagram on the daily operations report from your computer. Those of you that use Manage Operations, you'll be able to see it from your computer, your device, that room diagram, but it also prints on the confirmation for the customer. I'll show you that in just a bit, which brings me to my next tip. please don't put your room diagrams under documents. The best practice is to put them under here. The Documents tab is really reserved for important documents that go with this particular booking. So you can see here that I've got a contract uploaded, certificate of insurance, and campus map. So the extra value in putting documents here, when you email a confirmation to a customer, and then you click on send, there's this little attachments icon right here. And when you choose an existing file, there are the documents. So I could include my campus map to the customer, a copy of the contract that they maybe need to sign and get back to me. Okay. Let me just point something else out here. By the way, I'd mentioned that the customer could click on the room diagram link. That's what I was referring to. Okay, back to my event. The next tip that I'd like to share with you, some of you have new employees that aren't familiar with the rooms, what's in the room. But if you click on the room in the event viewer, you can see the type of room, the capacity of the room, any setup and teardown minutes that have been associated with the room, features of the room, any notes that you may have put with the room, and then internal notes. So these notes, the requester can see, keep that in mind. The internal notes, requesters cannot see those internal notes. Okay. You can also see the room setups that have been configured with that room, and then any pictures that you have uploaded with that room, all from the event viewer. Okay. The next one that I want to show you is, some of you use event questions. You either require your requesters to answer questions, or you add event questions and you want to print those on the confirmation. So from the event questions tab, you'll notice this copy button, and this came out, I believe, September last year. So I can copy these event questions. I can go to my event notes, click on add note, and then copy that. From here, I can pick and choose which ones I want to print on the confirmation. I'm just going to leave them all on there. And then when you click this box and save it, they will print on the confirmation that goes out to the customer. There you go. Now there's a second way to have those event questions print on the confirmation, and that's under your settings, confirmation templates, and I'll just drill into my facility use, options tab, show event questions. Now, when you do this, it's going to print all the event questions. You don't get to pick and choose, okay? So if you prefer to use the other way where you can pick and choose what event questions show, do the copy and paste. Okay, my last, I close all these little guys, go back to my event. My last tip and trick of the day, you may want to send a quick message to the contact on the event. And this little icon, when I expand the organization area up at the top, I can click on this little envelope and send a quick message. I'm going to send it to the contact or anybody else and click on send. The email sent. And yes, that is tracked. I'll just do a little refresh here. And when I go to my emails tab, here's all the emails that have been sent directly from the event viewer to the contact. Okay, there were my 7 tips and tricks, and now I'm turning it over to Joe.
Cool. Thanks, Wendy. All right. So I've got a few here to go through. Mostly going to focus on the confirmation. What I have are there's different types and reasons when you would want to be sending your confirmations. So I'm not going through the configuration of those confirmations, but you can have several different ones, and I'll show you some of them in my database. So I'm going to start with this event that I have in my system. Oops, I wanted to be back over here. And this event has several bookings on it. And if you want to send a confirmation on all of your bookings that you have available, so right now I'm seeing these two bookings, I would use this email option at the top here, which would basically say send in the confirmation and include all of the events bookings that I have on there. Okay. Now you say, wait a minute, I only saw two, right? And that's because there are some old bookings. If I come back over here, you did see that I had show old bookings and versus hide old bookings. And that's how that, or why we see all of those. So remember that the event email option, I call this the event because it's above the line where all the event data is. So it's going to send on all of the bookings. Okay. So that's the reason to use that one because you may want to. Now, if you only want to send on these two bookings, we have the one that Wendy was kind of alluding to there a little bit there. And that is if I check off just those bookings, I can do an email confirmation for those. And with that, it'll only have those two bookings on it. All right. Now, obviously, you may want to send something that's a confirmation function, but it's not an actual confirmation, or so you can have different templates in here. Say I need to send it as a BEO format, I can do that template. Now it says confirmation template, but I've used these for different things. I may want to send it as a pre-pricing, or in this case, I have one that is no pricing, and that changes within my configuration on what we have available here to see and or send out. And it may change based on your configuration what the title of that item is or document. Okay, so you could have those different titles within your configuration because here's an event quote title, so it's configured that way. Okay. Now, a lot of times people will go through here and they'll be clicking and trying to send those confirmations. And then they come up and they say, well, how do I get my confirmation to send that's canceled and therefore showing for canceled bookings? Well, you need to show your canceled bookings here through this option of display, and that will then bring available any of your bookings that are canceled. So I have one booking here that's canceled. So this is just like selecting that specific booking to then send the email. And now it will send only that particular booking within the format of the confirmation template. And again, you are probably going to choose a different template bearing the name over here of probably canceled and so forth, which I don't have one of those configured up here. Sorry about that. I should have had that done ahead of time. But I would select that and it would then say canceled event over here in the title because that's the way I would configure it. Okay. Now I'm just going to get myself reset over here. I'm actually going to go to another booking that I have, which is a newer one. And one of the items that Dean touched on was when you select your booking, you have the option for reports. So you do have these same reports for all across multiple date ranges and all that. But sometimes you just want to see what it is for this particular event and or multiple bookings, because I could have multiple bookings in this. But here using this report function, I can look and say, well, what is my daily operations look like for this particular booking? And then I could leverage that document to create a PDF and send that out in an email if I would desire. So it just gives that format of what that operations report looks like for that or those specific bookings that you have selected. Okay. Now, one of the things where Wendy touched on was event notes. Primarily, event notes are defined for things that are you use internally within your administrative, operational administrators, goodness gracious, sorry. Something that might need to be conveyed back and forth about this event, or something that might be specific to the users, and so forth. You can always put those in and keep track of those as you go down. Just remember where Wendy showed you that if you do print it on the click this checkbox for printing on confirmation, it will show to the end user. So you always get that option to have internal event notes for just your team to see, and then obvious an option to get it on the confirmation. Okay. The next area I was going to jump to is going to be event questions. Wendy touched on a piece of this, and this was copying so they would go the confirmation. I'm going to show you one of our newer functions that we have, which is after this requester has submitted this event with its questions answered, you may have additional items that are configured that you need them to answer. And so I can actually, as an event planner, add additional questions that show up here. And most often you're going to configure these as manually triggered event questions so that they can be applied to this particular event by you, the admin, okay? So I'm just going to grab one of my questions that I have available and say, do you make banana bread? And I could, as an event planner, give the answers to that question and be done with it. So maybe I got an email from them or a phone call from them, and I already knew what the answer was going to be based on that conversation. I could put it in. But we have this new feature here, which is to notify the requester of the question and when I needed it to be answered by. So if I need it to be answered by tomorrow, I can then put that in and save that question. Now, with that question, the requester is going to be required. I have to change my screens over here to show that. And my requester over here, when they go into that event, they are now going to be dropped onto that particular event question page for their event that has it. And they then have the question presented to them of what they have to answer. So then they can go in and answer or address that question. Okay. This also works with the cascading type of questions on the event as well, if it happens to be a lower question or a one that has a dependent question on it. So we do have that as a fairly new function to get that in. The requester does have to log into Mazévo in order to see that, however. Okay. And I think I got one more area. Back off over here. Got my, I'm going to go to the tasks. So as an event planner, I've got tasks. Now, tasks are simple reminders for you and your workflow. So this is a task that I have added automatically to this event, and it gives what due date based on my configuration. So if you get a lot of requests and things that need several steps for your team to remember, and they have lots of them, it's probably best to start working to create some tasks for your workflow of your process in order for people to go in and see those particular tasks that they need. Now, one of the things is, how do I find this without knowing that it's on this event? Well, that's going to be over here on day at a glance. So if you look at day at a glance, my tasks, you can see the ones that you have, and here's the new one that I put on, and here's my past ones that are in red that I've actually missed, so that you can actually see that. Now, these are the ones that are assigned to me as this admin user here, and the configuration. So tasks are very helpful to you and your team in getting through your workflow. And as I see this, I could go in to that particular event and do whatever it is that the task is reminding me to do. And within the task, I can then check it off to say, oh, I've completed it, or no, wait, this doesn't really apply to here. Or if I say, well, wait, I'm going to be on vacation by that time, I won't have the answer, I can respond back to the user and so forth. Okay. So I could say, yes, I have completed this, and then it marks it as completed. Okay. All right. That's my tips of the day. I'm going to stop and turn it over to Claire.
All right. Thanks, Joe. So I am going to share my screen, and I'm going to talk about history. So Dean talked about a few places where you could find history. I'm going to go down here to this email history right here. And you can have the date ranges here. So you could do specific dates if you wanted to. If I just do today and click search, it's going to show me all the emails that have gone out. And it has who it went to. It has the messages in here. So I can see all of this. Once I get this set, if it's something that I look at a lot, I can save it. And then I can get to it easier, so I don't have to keep going back up and filtering. Another piece of this that I wanted to show is you could put filters in here. So you can have different types of emails if you're looking for something specific. Okay, so that's one way. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into an event, and I'm going to show you some other ways where there is histories. So where you can find history on the whole event is this little icon here. If you click it, it gives you all the history for the event, when it was changed, what the new value was. If you scroll over, you can see I was in there playing, and so I changed things around. But this gives you everything. So everything for this event is in that little icon. If I go to the booking, say I want to go here into the booking, and I'm going to edit it, I've got history here too that I can see. So pretty much like Dean said, history is everywhere in this. Same for the resources. Let me go back to the event. I've got my resource tab here. If I go in the actual resource and I want to change it, here's your history tab here. So you can look. This is, there's a discount given, and Brian did it on the 21st, but you've got all that information on all the different resources. You go back into the bookings. You also have it on the event notes. So I can go here and I can go into the event note. There's your history. So again, pretty much on every tab you have this. Another one is the approvals. If you're just curious, oh, let's see what's going on with those approvals. Here's my history button. So you can see when it was created. Nothing's been done with this one, so there's no history, but you can see who actually created it. But that just gives you a place to see every piece of history on the event, no matter what you're looking for. And it's pretty much on all tabs. So that's what I wanted to show you. I'll hand it back over to Brian.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Look at that. And we're like right almost at our time. I wasn't sure if we'd get through all this stuff. There was a lot there. I hope everybody is going to walk away with some cool little tips that they learned today. I can tell you, like, even when we were putting this together and kind of deciding what do we want to show and talk about, I mean, there was stuff we forget some of this stuff too. So it's a good refresher for us. But yeah, I hope this was helpful for everybody. Does anybody have any last questions? If you want to unmute yourself or put it in the chat, feel free now. But again, I hope this was helpful, and we will be doing this again next month. I don't have the topic yet ready for that, but stay tuned. We'll let you know what it is, and I'll send an email out probably early next week with the recording for this if anybody wants to watch that. But But yeah, I hope this was helpful. And if there aren't any last questions, we'll go ahead and sign things off here.
I think there was one, Brian. I'm not sure if anyone got to it. From POIRIESJ. This person says, I'm new to Mazévo, helping while we hire. The previous person set up an email that sent to me every Thursday with the room cards of the events in my building for the following week. I need to add a new person to that email.
Ah, yeah, that's a subscription, a report subscription is what that is, and that's under published reports. If you want to send us an email to support@gomazavo.com, I can put it in the chat here, or somebody can put it in. We can help you out with that and guide you to where that is, because basically you just need to go in there and change the subscription on that. So yeah, Dean just put in the support email. So feel free to send us an email there and we will assist you with that. So anyways, thanks again. We'll go ahead and sign off here, but we'll look forward to hopefully seeing you again here next month. Thanks again.
Thanks, everyone.